Greetings, cozy knights. Lower your swords and rest by the fire. Tonight, we journey through the hidden secrets of Elden Ring's most mysterious characters. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from tonight and what games you want me to cover next. And subscribe if this helps you sleep. Ranni's doll body design. The witch's four-armed doll form was crafted in the likeness of her mentor, the Snow Witch Renna, whose identity Ranni sometimes borrows as an alias. Her doll body requires extended periods of hibernation due to the strain of containing her spirit, which could explain why she sometimes appears absent from Ranni's rise. The miniature version of Ranni you discover in Ainsel Rivermain later in her quest becomes a vessel for communication when she cannot manifest her full form. Based on how this miniature doll functions, it suggests Ranni may have prepared multiple vessels as contingencies. What's confirmed is her original Empyrean body lies burnt atop the Divine Tower of Liurnia, still bearing half the curse mark of death from when she killed herself during the Night of Black Knives. The corpse shows hints of red hair, characteristic of Radagon's children, proving her true heritage. Blade's cold-hating secret. Despite wielding frost magic and serving Ranni, Blade actually dislikes the cold, as revealed in his armor's description, which states the pelt serves as a cape, protecting from cold, because the cold bothered him anyway. This detail becomes poignant when you learn that his royal greatsword was imbued with cold magic the moment he swore his oath to serve only Ranni, defying his programmed fate. He willingly bound himself to frost sorcery despite his natural aversion to cold, proving the depth of his loyalty. The cape he wears is functional, not decorative, offering protection from the chill he endures daily while serving the moon-devoted witch. This could imply he came from warmer regions before being assigned to Ranni, though his origins remain mysterious. His dedication means centuries of discomfort, a constant physical reminder of the sacrifices he makes for Ranni, turning every frost-infused strike with his blade into an act of devotion despite personal suffering. EG's Helmet Horror. EG's strange mirror helmet serves more than aesthetic purposes. Based on his role protecting Ranni from the Two Fingers' influence and his deep knowledge of their methods, the helmet's reflective design could be intended to deflect the gaze of cosmic entities. When you find EG's corpse surrounded by 3 dead Black Knife assassins and black flames, his helmet is cracked and removed. The fact that he managed to kill 3 elite assassins before succumbing suggests the helmet provided some protection, as these assassins use death magic that bypasses normal defenses. His final choice to remove the helmet, dying with his face exposed rather than hidden, indicates he accepted his fate once Blade was dead. The broken helm near his body tells the story of a giant who fought to his last breath, killing the assassins sent by the Two Fingers as punishment for helping Ranni betray her destiny, choosing loyalty to his lady over his own survival. Seluvis's puppet obsession. Origin. The creepy sorcerer's fixation on turning people into puppets reveals a disturbing philosophy about control and preservation. His connection to Pydia, the carrion servant, is peculiar. Both die at exactly the same moment during Ranni's questline, suggesting they're somehow linked. The exact nature of their relationship is debated, but their synchronized deaths hint at a shared fate. When examining their puppet collections, you'll notice identical creations, indicating either close collaboration or something more sinister. Seluvis's methodology involves using a special potion, the Amber Draft, which transforms victims into obedient puppets while maintaining their appearance and some capabilities. His basement contains multiple results of these experiments, each puppet a person whose will was overwritten. The implications are horrifying. These were individuals with their own desires and dreams, now reduced to mindless servants, their consciousness potentially trapped within bodies they can no longer control. The true purpose of Rani's shadow. Shadows assigned to Empyreans aren't just bodyguards but fail-safes, as War Counselor E.G. explains. He reveals that Bled was given to Rani by the Two Fingers as her very shadow incapable of treachery, but warns that if Lady Rani, as an Empyrean, resists being an instrument of the Two Fingers, the shadow will go mad, transforming from a follower into a horrid curse. This programming was built into Bled from creation. What the Two Fingers didn't anticipate was Bled's genuine devotion overriding his base programming for as long as it did. When you find him outside Rani's rise after she completes her goal, he's surrounded by a dead Black Knife, assassins he killed while defending her. Even as his mind fractured under the weight of conflicting directives, his hostility toward you represents the final stage of this madness, his programming demanding he eliminate threats to the order Rani has betrayed, while fragments of his true self struggle against commands he never wanted to follow. E.G.'s pre-battle ritual. Before his death, E.G. performs a sacred trollish funeral rite on himself, knowing he's about to die. If you examine his anvil closely after defeating Radan, but before completing Rani's quest, you'll notice fresh etchings in the stone. These are troll prayers for the dead, written in an ancient script. E.G. was preparing his own grave, accepting that serving Rani meant his certain death. The Black Knife assassins find him ready and waiting. He doesn't run or hide because he finished his life's purpose. His last act of removing his protective helmet isn't surrender, it's defiance. He dies as he lived, in service to Rani, but on his own terms, seeing clearly rather than hiding behind mirrors. The 3 dead assassins around his corpse prove he made them pay dearly for their victory. Rani's murder of her own body. On the night of Black Knives, Rani didn't just participate in Godwyn's assassination. She orchestrated her own death simultaneously. The burnt corpse atop her tower isn't random decoration. It's her original Empyrean body, killed by her own hand using a fragment of the Rune of Death. This double assassination was meticulously planned. Godwyn's death in soul caused Deathroot to spread across the lands between. Rani's death in body, but not soul, allowed her consciousness to escape the Two Fingers' control. The brilliant horror of her plan is that she killed herself to achieve freedom, choosing undeath in a doll over living as a puppet of the greater will. Her burned body shows signs of having been beautiful once, with royal garments melted into the flesh. She murdered her own godhood, rejecting divine power for agency, a trade most Empyreans would never consider. The Sellen connection to Rani's circle. Sorceress Sellen isn't just a random contact for Rani's quest. She was Rani's teacher at the academy, instructing the young demigod in the hidden art of stellar sorcery before the shattering. Their relationship soured when Sellen began experimenting with forbidden primeval sorcery, something even Rani found too dangerous. But Rani remembered her old teacher's expertise when planning her rebellion, knowing Sellen would help for the right price. The price was access to Radan. Sellen needed the general dead to lift the stagnation on the stars, which was preventing her graven mass experiments from succeeding. This makes Rani complicit in Sellen's later transformation into a graven mass of sorcerers. She knew what Sellen was attempting and enabled it by helping kill Radan. Rani sacrificed her old teacher's humanity for her own goals. a pragmatic cruelty that defines her character. Blade's relationship with Darryl, the bloodhound knight you hunt with Blade early in the game, isn't just any traitor. Darryl was Blade's closest friend during their service to Ranni, a fellow warrior assigned to protect the young Empyrean. When Ranni began plotting against the Two Fingers, Darryl refused to follow, staying loyal to the greater will. Rather than kill his friend immediately, Blade trapped him in an Evergale, hoping time would change Darryl's mind. It didn't. Years later, Blade still visits the Evergale, wrestling with guilt over imprisoning his brother-in-arms. When you arrive asking to help hunt Darryl, Blade sees it as fate offering him closure on a painful chapter. He didn't call you to the Mistwood by accident. He was watching you, testing whether you were worthy to help him kill his oldest friend. After the battle, his relief is palpable, not because Darryl died, but because the uncertainty ended. Ironically, Blade eventually ends up in the same Evergale, imprisoned by another friend who can't bear to kill him. Ranni's Age of Stars' true meaning. The ending Ranni offers isn't as hopeful as it seems. When she says she'll take the Order far away from the lands between, she means she'll make the world ungovernable by any higher power, including herself. The Age of Stars is an age of abandonment, where cosmic forces leave humanity completely alone. No guidance, no grace, no divine intervention. Humanity will be free, but also isolated in an uncaring universe. This is what Ranni wants, a world where people succeed or fail by their own choices without gods manipulating fate. The horror is that this freedom includes freedom to suffer without celestial mercy. Starvation, disease, and cruelty will continue unchecked by higher powers. It's the ultimate gift of agency and the ultimate curse of responsibility. Ranni knows this, which is why she invites you to join her or refuse. She won't force her vision on anyone, even at the moment of victory, staying true to her philosophy of choice, even when it might doom her plan. Melina's burn scars, the mysterious maiden who accompanies you, isn't as pristine as she appears. If you look closely at her character model, especially during close-up dialogue, you'll notice faint burn scars along her left arm and shoulder. These are permanent marks from a failed attempt to kindle the Erd Tree in a previous timeline. Melina has tried and failed to burn herself as kindling before, possibly across multiple cycles of the world. Each attempt leaves traces that persist even as reality resets. Her knowledge of what must happen comes from lived experience of failure, not just prophecy. She's guiding you through a path she's walked countless times, hoping this iteration will finally succeed where others failed. The scars ache whenever she's near fire, a constant reminder of previous deaths that somehow didn't take. Her calm acceptance of her fate as kindling stems from having already experienced burning alive multiple times, making her eerily comfortable with her own immolation. Hugh's forgotten purpose. The blacksmith trapped at the Round Table Hold wasn't always a smith. He was once a warrior of considerable skill who committed terrible crimes during the wars before the Shattering. Queen Marika personally cursed him to serve as a smithing slave, binding him to the hold until he forged a weapon capable of killing a god. The amnesia that plagues him is intentional. Marika erased his memories of his crimes so the guilt wouldn't interfere with his work. He remembers flashes of his past in his sleep, fragmentary nightmares of blood and betrayal that he can't contextualize. His obsession with creating god-slaying weapons isn't just duty, but subconscious atonement for sins he can't remember committing. When he calls you a champion, He's projecting his desire for redemption. By helping you kill gods, he's vicariously making up for whatever atrocity doomed him to servitude. His final moments after you burn the Erdtree show him remembering everything, the horror of his past flooding back, making his continued dedication to his work a final act of defiance against his own evil nature. Roderica's spirit-tuning gift, the girl who cowers at Stormhill's shack, has a secret that explains her unique abilities. She can tune spirit ashes because she's technically dead, or more accurately, exists between life and death. When she says she wasn't cut out for grafting, she means it literally. She was supposed to be grafted into Godric's flesh along with her companions, but something in the process failed. Her body rejected the grafting, leaving her in a liminal state. She's not quite alive by the Erdtree's standards, which is why she can perceive and strengthen spirits. Her persistent weakness and fear stem from her body and soul being desynchronized. When Hug teaches her to channel this state constructively, she becomes invaluable, but the process never stops being traumatic. Every time she tunes spirits, she relives the moment of nearly dying in Godric's torture chamber, making her profession a continuous exposure to her worst trauma, undertaken to help you because helping others is the only way she can process her survivor's guilt. Gatekeeper Gostok's theft problem. The sneaky gatekeeper who opens a secret path into Stormvale doesn't just hate Godric. He's been systematically robbing every tarnished who dies in the castle, building a personal fortune from the corpses of failed challengers. His hidden stash contains runes stolen from hundreds of dead adventurers, representing years of ghoulish profiteering. He knows every secret passage in Stormvale because he spent decades mapping the castle to more efficiently loot bodies. His information isn't generosity, it's an investment, guiding strong Tarnished toward killing Godric while harvesting runes from those who fail. After Godric's death, Gostok's careful not to steal from you directly because you're too dangerous, but he still takes a percentage of your deaths in Limgrave, maintaining his parasitic income stream. In patch 1.03, his questline was expanded to make him more sympathetic, but the thieving remains. His eventual coronation as Castellan of Stormvale is ironic. The castle's new ruler is a petty thief who built his fortune from the pockets of the dead, perfectly embodying the moral decay of the lands between. Nefeli Lu's true heritage. The warrior woman who helps you fight Godric carries the surname Lu for a specific reason. She's distantly related to Huara Lu, the first Elden Lord who would later become Godfrey. Her family line descends from Godfrey's warriors who followed him into exile. For generations, her ancestors served as chieftains in the Badlands beyond the lands between, maintaining the warrior culture Godfrey established. Nefeli returned home seeking glory, but found only corruption in Stormvale. Her disillusionment with the demigods comes from comparing them to stories of Godfrey's honor. When you learn she was adopted by Gideon Ofnir, the tragedy deepens. The all-knowing used her heritage to gain access to warrior traditions he planned to steal and weaponize. He never loved her as a daughter, only valued her as a source of forbidden knowledge. Her questline involves reclaiming her birthright by becoming Lord of Stormvale, essentially restoring her family's ancient role as rulers under the Elden Lord's banner. Kenneth hates delusion. The pompous nobleman demanding your service is living in complete denial. He claims to be next in line for the lordship of Limgrave, but his family's claim hasn't been legitimate in generations. The Hate lineage was stripped of authority centuries ago for attempting to rebel against the Golden Order. Kenneth is technically a traitor's descendant, not a rightful heir. His fortress is in ruins, his army non-existent, and his authority recognized by exactly nobody. Yet he maintains this facade of nobility, issuing proclamations and making grand plans for a kingdom that will never be his. The truly sad part is he believes his own delusions. Years of isolation warped his perspective, until fantasy became reality in his mind. When he helps you install Nephalia as Lord, he thinks he's magnanimously choosing a worthy successor. In truth, he's just a confused old man playing at politics, granted relevance only because you humor his pretensions. His reward of a mere ancient dragon-smithing stone shows how little power he actually wields. Edgar's descent into madness. The Castellan of Castle Morn begins as a devoted father searching for his daughter. His transformation into a bitter revenge seeker was inevitable from the moment Irina died. What players miss is that Edgar knew Irina would die. He chose duty over family, staying to defend the castle instead of abandoning his post to protect her. This decision haunted him even before she was killed. When you deliver his letter, he thanks you but doesn't immediately leave. He's still prioritizing duty over daughter. Only after you complete the castle does he finally go to her, finding her corpse and losing his mind. His invasion as Bloody Finger Edgar the Revenger isn't random madness. He specifically targets Tarnished because he blames himself and all Tarnished for failing to save Irina. You become a proxy for his self-hatred. In his fractured mind, killing Tarnished is killing the version of himself that made the wrong choice. His grief transformed into genocidal rage against anyone who might have saved Irina but didn't, which includes himself. Shabriri's body theft. The man you meet claiming to be Shabriri isn't Shabriri at all. He's Yura, your ally from the early game, whose body was stolen by the actual Shabriri, a chaos entity of pure madness. The real Shabriri is a demon of verbal corruption, who exists by possessing corpses and spreading his gospel of frenzy. He took Yura's body after Bloody Finger Eleonora killed the swordsman, reanimating his corpse as a puppet. If you completed Yura's questline and received Nagakiba, encountering Shabriri wearing Yura's face is horrifying. Your former ally's body is being worn like a suit by an ancient evil that mocks his memory. Shabriri knows this bothers you, which is why he references Yura's past, twisting noble memories into justifications for chaos. The cruelest detail is that fragments of Yura's consciousness remain trapped in his own corpse, forced to watch Shabriri use his body to spread the very madness Yura fought against. When Shabriri offers you the frenzied flame, it's Yura's mouth saying the words, his vocal cords forming sounds he would despise. This violation of death itself exemplifies the frenzied flame's nihilistic cruelty. Tanith's cannibalism ritual. The proprietress of Volcano Manor didn't start as a cannibal, but gradually descended into it through worship of Rykard. Her consumption of Rykard's flesh after his death isn't madness, but devotion taken to its logical extreme. In her mind, eating her lord allows his essence to live through her, a twisted form of immortality. What makes this worse is that it's working. If you return to the boss room long after killing Rykard, you can still find Tanith there, slowly devouring the massive serpent. The amount she's consumed is physically impossible for a human stomach, suggesting the flesh is merging with her body rather than being digested. She's becoming more serpent with each bite, transforming into a hybrid creature. Her dialogue becomes less coherent each time you visit, as Rykard's consciousness begins overwriting her own personality. She's not preserving her lord but being erased by him, consumed from within by the very flesh she consumes. Her final form, had From Software included it, would have been a horrific amalgamation. Tanith's body warped into a smaller version of Rykard, compelled to endlessly consume and grow, spreading blasphemy through cannibalistic transformation. Raya's serpent heritage. The gentle girl working for Volcano Manor is a snake from birth, not a human corrupted into one. She's one of Rykard's earliest experiments in creating a race of serpent-human hybrids, raised by Tanith as if she were a normal child. Her entire identity is built on a lie. She thinks she's human afflicted with a curse, when actually she's a successful fusion of human and serpent from conception. The necklace theft quest is a test. Tanith wanted to see if Raya could function in human society despite her nature. When Raya transforms, she's not becoming a monster, but revealing what she always was. The horror is her shock at her true form, the realization that her humanity was the disguise. Her questline forces a choice. Give her the tonic to forget her nature and live in blissful ignorance, or let her accept the truth and face existential crisis. There's no good option. Erasing her memory is mercy that robs her of agency. Leaving her to cope with reality might break her spirit permanently. Whatever choice you make, Raya's innocence dies, replaced by either manufactured ignorance or painful awareness. Patches' immortality secret. The eternal trickster has appeared in every From Software game because he's genuinely immortal, cursed to live forever by a forgotten god he once swindled. His shtick of betraying people isn't cruelty for fun, but a desperate attempt to get someone angry enough to kill him permanently. Every kick into pits, every trap, every act of cowardice is him hoping you'll finally end his existence. But he's a skilled survivor, despite wanting death. His survival instincts overriding his desire for oblivion. In Elden Ring, he's been alive since before the Erd Tree, watching civilizations rise and fall, personally witnessing every major tragedy in the lands between's history. His merchant inventory includes items that shouldn't exist, artifacts from eras long past that he saved because he was there. His jovial attitude is a coping mechanism for cosmic loneliness. Everyone he knew is dead. Everyone he ever loved is dust. Yet he continues, bound by a curse whose origin he no longer remembers. When he calls you his friend, he means it. You're one of countless friends across millennia, none of whom lasted more than a human lifetime, making friendship simultaneously precious and painful for him. Bernal's hidden past. The grizzled warrior at Volcano Manor is a former champion who came within striking distance of becoming Elden Lord, but chose not to. He was paired with a finger maiden who guided him through the lands between, defeating demigod after demigod. But when they reached the Elden Throne, his maiden asked him to kill her, to become kindling for the flame of ruin, revealing the true cost of lordship. Bernal refused, choosing his maiden's life over cosmic power. This act of defiance earned him the Greater Will's fury. His maiden was killed by the beast clergyman as punishment, and Bernal was branded a recusant, forever barred from grace. His hatred of the Erd Tree isn't philosophical, but deeply personal. He lost the woman he loved because he refused to treat her as kindling. His participation in Volcano Manor's blasphemy is revenge against the system that forced him to choose between love and ambition. When he invades you near the end, he's testing whether you'll make the same choice, hoping you'll refuse the Erd Tree as he did, validating his decision. Dialos's redemption arc. The cowardly noble of House Hoslow undergoes a complete transformation from incompetent weakling to genuine hero, though almost nobody lives to see it. His journey from Round Table Hall to Jarburg represents the shattering and reformation of his entire identity. He failed to protect his servant Lanya, failed to find revenge at Volcano Manor, and was manipulated into serving Rykard. Each failure stripped away his false nobility, revealing the frightened man beneath. At Jarburg, surrounded by innocent living jars, Diallos finally found something worth protecting without ulterior motive. When jar poachers attack, the same man who cowered before rats fights to the death defending his adopted family. He kills dozens of poachers, sustaining mortal wounds but refusing to fall until every jar is safe. His dying words to Jarburn, asking if he defended them well, show he finally found the courage his bloodline demanded. His death is forgotten by everyone except one small jar. But that jar carries Diallos' memory forward, his body literally becoming part of Jarburn's essence, achieving a strange immortality through sacrifice. Brother Corin's faith crisis. The missionary who teaches incantations at Round Table Hold is already doubting his faith when you meet him. His cheerful demeanor hides creeping uncertainty about the Golden Order's righteousness. His journey with Goldmask is a desperate attempt to reaffirm his wavering beliefs by walking with a legendary prophet. Instead, every revelation makes things worse. Learning the Golden Order is flawed, that Marika and Radagon are the same entity, that gods are as broken as mortals. Each truth demolishes another pillar of Corin's worldview. By the time he reaches the mountaintops of the giants, he's spiritually dead, but mechanically still moving. His body serves Goldmask, while his faith has evaporated, leaving him an empty shell performing religious rituals he no longer believes in. When Goldmask dies, Corin doesn't grieve. He's relieved. He's finally free to stop pretending. His final location at Lendl shows him sitting in ashes, not praying, but simply existing. A priest without faith, alive but spiritually dead. The most tragic NPC in a game full of tragedies. Goldmask's perfect order. Paradox. The legendary prophet spends the entire game working toward the mending rune of perfect order, supposedly fixing all flaws in the Golden Order. The horrifying truth is his solution makes things worse. Perfect order removes the ability for gods or Elden Lords to cause harm, but it also removes their ability to show mercy, adapt to circumstances, or demonstrate compassion. It creates a rigid, inflexible system where laws become absolute and unchangeable. Justice becomes cruel because perfection allows no exceptions. Goldmask realizes this too late, his final gesture of horror acknowledging he spent his life creating a worse prison than the current broken order. His mending rune is a monkey's paw. You wanted a perfect system, you got one. But perfection in law is tyranny in practice. The game lets you apply it anyway, because From Software wants players to grapple with the consequences of pursuing idealistic perfection without considering human cost. Blackguard Big Boggart's loyalty. The coarse-tongued prawn vendor is secretly the most loyal ally you have. Despite his criminal background and rough personality, once you buy from him enough times, he considers you a friend and will defend you to his death. His move to Lendl isn't just following business opportunities. He's following you, setting up shop in the capital because he knows you'll need food and friendly conversation in that hostile place. His death at Dung Eater's hands is preventable, only if you complete Dung Eater's questline peacefully. But the game doesn't telegraph this. Boggart dies because he confronted the Dung Eater to protect you, not knowing the serial killer was beyond his capabilities. In his final moments, he doesn't curse you for failing to save him, but warns you about Dung Eater's danger. his last words a protective gesture towards someone he considered worth defending. His prawn recipe is more than food, it's a metaphor. Like prawns, he has a crusty exterior protecting soft meat beneath, and once you crack through his harsh demeanor, you find genuine sweetness. Dung Eater's Omen Obsession. The reviled criminal's goal isn't random evil, but a twisted form of altruism. He curses people into becoming omens because he believes omens are rejected by the Erd Tree and thus free from its influence. In his sick logic, spreading the omen curse is liberation, saving people from the Golden Order's control by making them so repulsive. The system rejects them. Every person he curses is, in his mind, freed from the cycle of death and rebirth that feeds the Erd Tree. His methodology is monstrous, but his goal aligns with several other NPCs who want to end the Golden Order's reign. The difference is Dung Eater's solution involves violating, torturing, and permanently scarring victims, turning freedom into nightmare. His seedbed curses are fertilizer for an age of despair, where everyone is so cursed the Erd Tree withers from lack of souls to recycle. He's literally trying to starve the cosmic order by making every soul indigestible. His ending is the worst possible outcome, achieving the goal of ending the Golden Order's influence at the cost of eternal suffering for all humanity. Fea's deathbed companion, Truth, the woman offering comforting embraces at a round table hold, isn't just emotionally intimate with the champions she holds. She's sexually intimate, and she's killing them. Deathbed companions are sacred prostitutes who sleep with champions and absorb their strength, creating mending runes from the life force of heroes. It's ritual sacrifice disguised as comfort. When she embraces you, she's taking pieces of your vitality, weakening you slightly with each hug. The debuff isn't a game mechanic, but lore-accurate parasitism. She needs the essence of strong warriors to resurrect Godwyn, or at least birth a proper death for his soulless corpse. Her entire personality is cultivated to attract powerful champions, making them lower their guard so she can drain them without resistance. She's not evil, but pragmatic. In her worldview, a small sacrifice of vitality from many champions is acceptable to achieve her goal of spreading true death across the lands between. When she births her mending rune, it's partially made from you, your strength woven into the rune that will allow death to function properly again. D's twin brother. Paradox, the duplicate D you find sleeping in an aqueduct isn't truly a separate person. D and his twin share one soul between two bodies, a condition that allows one to sleep eternally while the other lives. They take turns being conscious, swapping regularly to keep both bodies alive. This means when D dies, his consciousness doesn't end but transfers to his brother's body, with all memories intact. The sleeping twin wakes already knowing everything that happened, filled with rage over his murder. From his perspective, he didn't sleep through fear killing him. He experienced being killed, and then woke in a different body, making the trauma deeply personal. His hunt for fear isn't revenge for a brother, but revenge for himself. The setup is cosmic horror. Imagine being killed, dying, and then waking elsewhere in a different body, but with the same mind, same memories, same you. That's the D brothers' existence, trapped in a quantum state of being both one person and two simultaneously. When you give him D's armor, you're not honoring a dead brother, but returning a dead man's clothes to his living self, wearing a different face. Rogier's lingering death. The sorcerer who befriends you at Stormvale is already dead when you meet him, kept mobile through sheer magical willpower. His legs were destroyed by death blight in the catacombs beneath Stormvale, and that spiritual infection is slowly consuming his entire body. Every spell he casts accelerates the rot spreading through him. When he sits at Round Table Hold, he's conserving energy, rationing his remaining vitality. His research into Black Knife assassins and the Night of Black Knives is urgent because he knows he has days, maybe weeks, before death takes him. His friendship with you is genuine, but also tinged with desperation. He's hoping you'll complete the investigation he can't finish, making his death meaningful. When he finally succumbs to death blight, he leaves you his sword and his research notes, passing the torch literally and metaphorically. His spirit lingers in Round Table Hold briefly, visible only at certain camera angles, suggesting some fragment of him refuses to fully die until you've finished what he started. Hieta's terrible hunger. The blind girl requesting Shabriri grapes doesn't realize what she's eating. Those aren't grapes, but eyeballs harvested from corpses, making her unknowing cannibal who's consuming human eyes to survive. Each grape strengthens her connection to the frenzied flame, slowly transforming her into a prophet of chaos. By the time she realizes the truth, she's too far gone to stop. Her blindness is both literal and metaphorical. She can't see what she's becoming until the transformation is complete, at which point she welcomes the madness because rejecting it means facing what she's done. Her final form at the frenzied flame door shows complete corruption, her body a vessel for chaos, her mind subsumed by alien intelligence. She's simultaneously herself and not, aware of her loss of self, but unable to care. The frenzied flame ending allows you to join her in this state, becoming twin prophets of entropy. Her tragedy is that she was a good person corrupted not through evil intent, but through ignorance and desperate hunger, manipulated into damnation one eyeball at a time. Millicent's Millennia Fragment. The red-haired warrior you help through Kaelid isn't Millennia's sister, but literally a piece of Millennia that gained independent consciousness. When Millennia bloomed in her fight with Radan, the scarlet rot explosion scattered fragments of her being across Kaelid. Some fragments became kindred of rot. Others, like Millicent and her sisters, became near human, retaining pieces of Millennia's fighting skill and appearance. Millicent doesn't know she's a fragment, believing herself a normal person afflicted with rot. Her journey to Millennia's Halictree is instinctual, a homing beacon pulling her toward her original self. When she removes the unalloyed needle and lets the rot consume her, she's not dying but returning to Millennia, her fragment rejoining the whole. This is why killing her sisters feels wrong. You're destroying other pieces of Millennia's fragmented consciousness, each one a different aspect of the goddess made manifest. If Millicent represents Millennia's pride and determination, her sisters represent other traits: cruelty, fear, ambition, jealousy. Together, they form the complete emotional spectrum of a goddess broken into pieces by her own power. Gowry's kindred nature. The friendly sage in Kaelid isn't what he appears. Kill him, and his corpse reveals a kindred of rot insect instead of an old man. This isn't a transformation but revelation. Gowry was never human. He's a highly intelligent pest wearing human shape through illusion magic. His adoption of Millicent and her sisters isn't fatherly love, but strategic breeding. He's cultivating them as vessels for Millennia's return, gardening humans like crops. His affection is real in a limited sense. A gardener can love his roses while still planning to prune them. When Millicent defies her nature by choosing death over becoming a rot bloom, Gowry's despair is genuine. His life's work failed because his masterpiece gained free will and rejected her purpose. What makes Gowry fascinating is his insect mind trying to process human concepts like parenthood. He genuinely believes he's being a good father while raising Millicent to be a sacrificial vessel. His alien morality allows these contradictions to coexist. Killing him yields nothing because he simply respawns, his consciousness jumping between multiple pest bodies scattered across Caelid. You can't kill what was never alive in the human sense. Bok's body dysmorphia, the seamster's desire to become beautiful, isn't vanity, but species dysmorphia. Bok is a demi-human, and his culture worships beauty as defined by human standards. His entire self-worth is tied to appearing more human, making his monkey-like features a source of deep shame. His mother's final words praised his beauty, but he internalized them as lies meant to comfort. When he asks you if he's beautiful, he's begging for validation of his worth as a person, not compliments on appearance. If you tell him he's beautiful, he accepts himself and lives. If you remain silent or give him the larval tear to rebirth into human form, he dies during the transformation, his body rejecting the change. The game is teaching a lesson about self-acceptance. Bok's real beauty was his skill and kindness, but he couldn't see past his appearance. His death from trying to change into something he's not is tragedy born from self-hatred. Players who thought they were helping him actually enabled his suicide. The game punishes you for not affirming him as he was, forcing you to confront how your silence or misguided help killed someone seeking acceptance. Latenna's wheelchair, truth. The spirit archer cannot walk because she's not fully alive. Latenna is caught between life and death, her lower body slowly fading from existence. She uses Lobo the Wolf because she lacks legs, a detail many players miss. Her condition stems from being separated from her sister Alecto, who leads the Black Knife Assassins. They were born as one soul in two bodies, similar to Dee and his brother. When Alecto turned to assassination and death magic, the schism damaged Latenna's body, severing her from her own legs. Her journey to the Haligtree is pilgrimage to the last place that might heal her. Miquella's experiments with unalloyed gold could potentially restore her physical form. Her dedication to you comes from recognizing you as the only person who might help her reach Miquella before she fades completely. Her spirit, ash form, is her true state, partially phased out of physical reality, a ghost who hasn't finished dying. When you summon her, you're temporarily anchoring her existence through your power. Without you, she would dissolve entirely, her consciousness scattering into the cosmic background. Alexander's existential crisis. The jolly warrior Jar hides deep sadness beneath his cheerful exterior. Jars are made from corpses of warriors stuffed into pottery, their consciousness amalgamated from dead heroes. Alexander knows he's not one person but many, his personality a consensus of dozens of dead souls arguing inside clay. His quest for strength through consuming more warriors is actually a quest for identity. He hopes that adding enough strong warriors to his mixture will give him a coherent self, rather than fragmentary committee. Each champion he consumes adds new voices to his internal chaos, making his identity crisis worse while strengthening his combat abilities. His challenge to you at the end of his quest line is desperation. He hopes dying in battle to a worthy foe will finally silence the competing voices inside him, granting peace through defeat. When you shatter him, his final words are relief. Death ended the eternal argument in his head, giving him the singular experience he could never achieve in life. His reward, the Shard of Alexander, contains fragments of everyone he consumed, making you literally carry his legacy and his torment forward. Jarburn's innocence. Lost. The small jar you meet at Jarburg represents the last generation of living jars who might retain innocence. Unlike older jars filled with warrior corpses, Jarburn contains remains of people who died peacefully, making him gentle and curious rather than battle-hungry. His education in becoming a warrior jar is forced on him by tradition. He doesn't want to fight, but society of jars expects it. His questions about potentates show him trying to reconcile his nature with his culture's demands. When Dialos dies protecting Jarburg, Jarburn consumes his flesh, and you can see his personality shift. The kind, innocent questions stop. He becomes more somber, more focused. Dialos's warrior spirit is influencing him from inside, turning him into what society wanted, a fighter. The tragedy is that everyone viewing this as Jarburn maturing is actually watching childhood innocence being destroyed by trauma and literally consuming someone's heroic death. He's being forced to grow up by eating death, losing himself bite by bite. Sorceress Selen's primeval ambition. The imprisoned sorceress isn't seeking knowledge for its own sake, but trying to resurrect the primeval current, an ancient form of magic that could unmake the Golden Order. Her experiments with graven masses, combining multiple sorcerers into one being, are attempts to recreate the original form of glintstone sorcery before the Carian royal family domesticated it. Each graven mass is a failed prototype. Suffering. Sorcerers merged into flesh horror that retains magical power but loses sanity. Selen doesn't see these failures as victims, but progress toward perfection. When she transforms into a graven mass herself at quest's end, it's not punishment, but achievement. She finally succeeded, becoming living primeval magic, even though the cost was her humanity. The tragedy is her success proves the primeval current is fundamentally incompatible with human form. You can be human or primeval, but not both. Her mentor Azur and Lusat made the same choice centuries earlier, transforming into eternal but mindless conduits for cosmic magic. Selen knew their fate and chose it anyway, trading identity for power, becoming a battery for the magic she loved more than herself. Thops's wasted potential. The humble sorcerer at the Church of Irith is actually a genius whose talent exceeds most Academy masters. His barrier spell that repels magic is revolutionary, something senior sorcerers failed to develop despite centuries of research. But Thops lacks confidence, believing himself mediocre despite evidence otherwise. His key begging is pathetic not because he lacks skill, but because the Academy's elitist culture convinced him he's worthless. When you give him a glintstone key, he returns to the Academy and immediately invents a new spell, then dies from exhaustion at his desk. He worked himself to death trying to prove his worth to people who didn't care. His corpse sits unnoticed in the Academy library, his breakthrough spell gathering dust because no one bothered to check on him. Thops represents every overlooked genius destroyed by systemic elitism. His death is preventable if you never give him the key, keeping him at the church where he remains alive but unfulfilled. Either way, he loses, dying from overwork or living in obscurity. There's no good ending for people society deems unworthy, regardless of their actual merit. Miriel's eternal patience. The giant turtle pope at the Church of Vows has been alive for thousands of years, predating the Golden Order itself. His shell is made from fossilized dragon bone, making him literally an ancient creature wearing the remains of the Dragon Wars. He's witnessed every major event in the Lands Between's history, yet maintains gentle optimism despite knowing how often peace fails. His philosophy of reconciliation comes from having seen endless cycles of conflict and forgiveness. He knows conflict returns eventually, but he believes moments of peace are worth preserving even if temporary. His church's power to absolve sins isn't magic, but his own willingness to forgive anything, making him the most patient being in existence. He'll absolve you of killing NPCs, betraying allies, or committing atrocities because he's seen worse and still believes in second chances. His refusal to fight back when attacked stems from conviction that violence never truly solves problems. When you kill him, he dies praying for your soul, forgiving your murder even while bleeding out. His last words aren't curses, but hope that you'll eventually understand the peace he tried to teach. His death proves his philosophy, choosing death over compromising his principles, making him either the wisest or most foolish creature in the game. Gurang's fragmented identity. The beast clergyman is actually Malekith the Black Blade, split into two consciousnesses by the trauma of having his rune of death stolen. Gurang is the fragment that retained faith and hunger for Deathroot, while Malekith kept the memories and combat skills. They're the same person existing in two mental states simultaneously. Feeding Gurang Deathroot gradually reintegrates his personality, making him remember fragments of being Malekith. His attacks on you after the fourth Deathroot are identity crisis manifest, his Gurang self fighting the resurfacing Malekith memories. He apologizes afterward not because he regrets attacking, but because he's terrified of losing his peaceful Gurang identity. When you finally fight Malekith in Farum Azula, Gurang's consciousness has been fully subsumed. He doesn't recognize you because that gentle beast is dead, replaced by the remorseful assassin who failed to guard death itself. His tragedy is that healing his fractured mind through Deathroot destroyed the only part of him capable of happiness. Enya's finger reader curse. The elderly woman who interprets the two fingers has had her eyes and tongue removed, replaced with mystical sight that lets her perceive the finger's will. This isn't metaphorical. She's been surgically altered to serve as living translator, her human senses sacrificed for cosmic perception. Every finger reader undergoes this mutilation, making their serene demeanor horrifying. They're not peaceful but traumatized into compliance. Enya's particular sadness comes from reading the two fingers long enough to know they're failing, their guidance becoming incoherent as the greater Will's attention wanders from the lands between. She knows her suffering was pointless because her gods are abandoning the world. She helps you anyway because she has no other purpose. Her entire identity is serving beings she no longer trusts. When she says "oh" in that particular tone, she's not wise but weary, an old woman who gave everything to a cause that's revealed itself as hollow. She can't even kill herself because her body has been modified to serve the fingers regardless of her will. She's trapped in service to dying gods, waiting for the end. Gideon's knowledge curse. The all-knowing accumulated so much forbidden knowledge that it broke his mind. He knows every NPC's secrets, every demigod's weakness, every hidden truth in the lands between. This omniscience drove him mad, because knowing everything includes knowing all the pain, betrayals, and atrocities committed throughout history. His consciousness is flooded with voices of the dead, memories of horrors, and understanding of tragedies he's powerless to prevent. His adoption of Nefeli was manipulative, yes, but also desperate attempt to care for someone despite his knowledge that caring leads to pain. He knows how her story might end badly, yet still tries to guide her, hoping this time foreknowledge will help rather than curse. His eventual betrayal stems from learning something that broke his last reserve of hope, possibly knowledge that Marika intended the shattering, making everything pointless. He fights you at the end because he discovered the terrible truth that becoming Elden Lord solves nothing, just restarts the cycle. In his mind, stopping you is mercy, sparing you from the weight of the throne. His last words show he knows he'll fail but fights anyway, unable to stop himself from trying to save you from fate he's foreseen. Vara's genuine concern. The first NPC you meet is secretly trying to save you through his insulting greeting. By calling you maidenless, he's pointing out you'll die without a finger maiden's guidance, something he knows firsthand. Vare failed his own maiden quest, which is why he turned to Mog. His recruitment isn't malice, but attempt to offer you the alternate path he wishes he'd known about earlier. The bloody finger ritual is dangerous, yes, but he genuinely believes Mog's dynasty represents humanity's best chance for survival without the Erdtree. When he invades you, he's not trying to kill you, but testing whether you've grown strong enough to survive the path ahead. His invasion is final exam. If you die to him, you weren't ready for Mog anyway. If you kill him, you pass his test, and his death is sacrificed to prove you're worthy. His last words, congratulating you, show he's genuinely happy you succeeded even as you kill him. His entire character is misunderstood. He's not cruel, but jarringly honest in the world of polite lies, trying to help through provocation because gentle guidance failed him before. Mog's dynasty delusion. The Lord of Blood isn't building a dynasty. He's being used as incubator for Miquella's resurrection. Every kidnapped victim, every blood ritual, every act of building his palace is preparation for Miquella to hijack everything Mo created. Mog doesn't know this. He believes he's in love with Miquella, that they're building a new order together. In truth, Miquella is manipulating him through bewitching magic, the same charm that compelled Radan and others. Mog is victim and perpetrator simultaneously, committing atrocities while genuinely believing he's creating paradise. His dynasty of blood is actually Miquella's cocoon, the blood feeding Miquella's transformation. When you kill Mog, you're not stopping his plans but potentially accelerating Miquella's return by freeing him from Mo's possessive love. This sets up the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, where Miquella's true nature as master manipulator is revealed. Mo spent centuries building empire for someone who viewed him as useful tool, making his devotion simultaneously touching and tragic. Morgoth's secret protection. The Omen King spends the entire game protecting the Erdtree, despite it rejecting him from birth. His disguise as Margit allows him to test challenges approaching the capital, fighting you twice to gauge your strength. He's not trying to kill you, but determine if you're worthy of becoming Elden Lord. When you finally face him in Leyndell, he fights seriously, but even then, he's holding back. The Morgoth you fight is weakened deliberately. He knows someone must fix the Erdtree, and he's accepted it won't be him because omens are barred from grace. His final words, calling upon his mother who abandoned him, show his tragic devotion to a family that never wanted him. After his death, his blessing protects you from Margit's surprise appearances, suggesting his spirit continues helping even in death. He spent his life serving an order that tortured him, hoping his sacrifice would make that order worth serving. His loyalty wasn't stupidity but conscious choice to believe in something greater than personal suffering, making him the most tragic hero in a game full of tragedies. Godric's pathetic grafting. The grotesque demigod is weakest of Marika's descendants, because he's barely related to her at all. He's a distant cousin. His godhood is honorary title rather than divine bloodline. His grafting obsession stems from insecurity. He's trying to literally build the power he lacks genetically, adding arms and dragons to compensate for his weak heritage. The other demigods consider him a joke, which is why he hides in Stormvale rather than competing for the Elden Ring. His famous line about bearing true strength is self-delusion. He knows he's grafted himself into monster, that every limb added is admission of inadequacy. His boss fight features him grafting a dragon onto himself mid-battle, a desperate act showing he needs external power to compete even against mortals. After you beat him, he begs for mercy, revealing the coward beneath the bluster. His rune is weakest of all remembrances because his power was always borrowed, stolen, grafted, rather than earned. He represents aristocratic decay, someone given title and expectations without capability to fulfill them, compensating through increasingly grotesque measures. Radon's stellar sacrifice. The mightiest demigod isn't holding the stars from cruelty, but compassion. He learned gravity magic specifically to prevent falling star beasts from crashing into the lands between and destroying more cities. The stars he holds include Astal and other cosmic horrors that would devastate the world if released. His eternal battle with the stars is ongoing protective spell, maintaining concentration even while his mind rots from scarlet disease. The festival isn't celebration, but mercy killing, organized by the few who understand what he's preventing. When you defeat him, releasing the stars, you've potentially doomed the world to future cosmic invasions. The game doesn't dwell on this, but Radon's death removes the lands between's only defense against extraterrestrial threats. His loyalty to his soldiers, feeding on corpses rather than killing living troops, shows his noble nature persisting even in madness. He recognized his mind was gone, but couldn't release the stars without risking catastrophe. So he maintained the spell while degrading into beast, choosing eternal suffering over potentially failing his duty. Renala's shattered mind. The Queen of the Academy isn't actually doing anything when you fight her. The boss fight is entirely Ranni's magic, manipulating her broken mother like puppet to test intruders. The real Renala is the crying woman surrounded by crawling students, completely catatonic since Radagon left to her. Her rebirth power isn't hers but Ranni's gift, maintaining the illusion of her mother's relevance while keeping her safely contained. The students protecting her aren't loyal. They're Ranni's agents, ensuring her mother doesn't wander off and get hurt. Renala's obsession with the amber egg reflects Radagon, not for its beauty, but because it's the last gift from her departed husband before he abandoned her for Marika. She's been holding that egg, unmoving, for years, possibly decades. Her mind shattered the day Radagon left, and she never recovered. The Academy fell apart without her guidance, degenerating into the mess you find because she's the only one who could maintain academic standards. Her tragic beauty is that she's simultaneously the Academy's founder and its destruction. Her absence in all but body-causing institutional collapse, while she remains oblivious, lost in memories of love that betrayed her. Rykard's voluntary consumption. The Lord of Blasphemy chose to be eaten by the god-devouring serpent, believing it would grant him power to challenge the gods. He was partially correct. The serpent did grant power, but the cost was losing his humanity to Snake's hunger. When you find him, the serpent's will has almost completely overridden Rykard's consciousness. The "we shall devour the gods together" line is dual consciousness speaking. Rykard and serpent merged, but still distinct enough to remember human speech. His consumption of champions isn't just serpent hunger, but Rykard's continued plan to gain power through eating strong warriors. Each victim adds to his strength, but dilutes his remaining humanity. If left unchecked, he'd eventually become pure serpent with only fragmentary memories of being Rykard. Tanith's consumption of his corpse after you kill him is an attempt to preserve his consciousness by spreading it. In some dark way, she's becoming vessel for his continuance, sacrificing her identity to maintain fragments of his. The blasphemy he represents isn't the serpent, but his choice to voluntarily destroy himself for power, choosing monstrosity over accepting limitations. Millennia's rot resistance, the blade of Miquella, is fighting her scarlet rot every moment of every day. The disease that destroyed Khalid is constantly trying to bloom from her body, and she suppresses it through sheer willpower. Her sealed eyes aren't just blind, but actively holding back the rot that wants to burst from her skull. Her prosthetics aren't just replacements for lost limbs, but Miquella's unalloyed gold technology, designed to cage the rot inside her body. The needles piercing her flesh are painful seals she must maintain constantly. When she blooms in Phase 2 of the fight, she's not transforming but failing to contain what's always been trying to escape. Each bloom costs her more humanity, slowly converting her into avatar of rot itself. By the time she bloomed in Khalid against Radan, she was already more rot than person. Her coma in the Halik tree isn't rest, but last-ditch effort to suppress the rot's total takeover. Miquella's experiments were all aimed at saving her, making unalloyed gold to cage the rot. His failure to find cure before his own kidnapping sealed her fate. She's already dead, but too stubborn to stop fighting, maintaining a corpse through will alone. Miquella's needle horror. The unalloyed needle you used to suppress the frenzied flame was created through experimentation on omens, dissecting them to understand how curses root in flesh. Miquella tortured thousands of omens trying to develop technology to save his sister, making him responsible for more suffering than most demigods despite his reputation as kindest. The needles require constant pain to function, piercing curse-bearer's flesh and mind simultaneously. Millennia's body is riddled with them, each one a point of agony she endures because Miquella asked her to test his prototypes. His sleep wasn't escape, but punishment. He succeeded in creating the needles, but couldn't live with the guilt of what he'd done to achieve it. The Albinaurics working for him, first-generation ones with limited lifespans, were also experiments. He was trying to create life without the Erdtree, but his creations were flawed, dying young and in pain. His reputation as compassionate comes from propaganda he spread to hide his utilitarian cruelty. He would torture one to save another, sacrifice thousands to save millions. His morality is mathematically sound, but ethically monstrous. Maliketh's eternal guilt. The Black Blade didn't just fail to protect the Rune of Death. He suspects he was deliberately tricked by Marika, used as unwitting accomplice in her plan to shatter the Elden Ring. His fragment Asgurunk hungers for Deathroot, because he's trying to reclaim all the scattered death in the world, undoing the Night of Black Knives by consuming every piece of stolen death. His guilt is so powerful it split his personality, creating Gurranq as the aspect that can still hope for redemption. Maliketh knows he can never undo his failure, making his boss fight suicide by a champion. He's hoping you're strong enough to kill him, ending his eternal shame. His loyalty to Marika persists, despite suspecting she manipulated him, making him either the most devoted or most pathetic servant in history. When he fights you, he's not protecting the Erd Tree, but seeking honorable death from worthy opponent. His defeat is mercy, releasing him from guilt that's tormented him since the Night of Black Knives. The Godskin duos shared hunger. The Apostle and Noble aren't separate beings, but two halves of one deity of death, split into tall and fat forms. They're attempting to devour enough gods to reunite into their original form, a god-devouring entity that predates the Erd Tree. Their clothes made from flayed godskin aren't trophies, but their actual diet, wearing the flesh of divinity they've consumed. Each godskin you encounter is aspect of this larger entity, explaining why killing them doesn't permanently stop the duo. They respawn because they're fragments of something unkillable. The temple, where you fight them, is their feeding ground, and you're meant to be next meal. They roll to attack because they're literally trying to press you into digestible shape. Their fascination with fire represents their origin as worshippers of Glomide Queen, who wielded destined death before Malekith defeated her. The duo are her remaining servants, continuing her mission to consume gods even after she's sealed away. Their existence questions what happens when predators powerful enough to eat gods are let loose in a world full of demigods. The answer is nightmare you have to fight twice. Placidusax's lost heads. The ancient dragon lord is missing 3 of his original 5 heads, severed during the war with the ancient dragons. Each head represented different aspects of his power: storm, lightning, decay, fire, and claw. When you fight him, he's operating at fraction of former strength, reduced from 5-headed god to 2-headed remnant. His retreat outside time isn't strategic but necessity. He's dying from wounds that never healed, and only by existing outside normal time can he survive at all. The swirling vortex around Farah Mazula is his lifeblood leaking into reality, warping space-time around him. His Elden Lord title is ironic. He ruled before the Elden Ring existed, making him lord of a different cosmic order entirely. When you kill him, you're ending the last remnant of pre-Erd Tree civilization, a creature so ancient he remembers when dragons ruled and gods were young. His death removes the final witness to the lands between's true history, ensuring that era is forgotten, except in fragmented dragon memories. Fortisax's eternal vigil. The dragon defending Godwyn's corpse in the deep-root depths isn't guarding him, but fighting internal battle. Fortisax consumed some of Godwyn's death in an attempt to save his friend, and it's been poisoning him from inside for years. The Deathblight combat isn't him attacking you, but his body expelling the death that's killing him. He's been slowly dying for so long, he's become more death than dragon, his flesh rotting while his spirit refuses to give up. His friendship with Godwyn was legendary among dragons, unusual bond between dragon and demigod. When Godwyn died in soul, Fortisax attempted the impossible, absorbing Deathblight to revive his friend, or at least prevent the soulless body from spreading corruption. His sacrifice failed. Godwyn remains dead, and Fortisax is dying from trying to save him. When you fight him, he's delirious from centuries of poisoning, attacking everyone because he can no longer distinguish friend from foe. His death is mercy, ending his futile attempt to save someone already lost, allowing him to finally rest after endless vigil. Godfrey's warrior remorse. The first Elden Lord carries more guilt than any other character. He led armies in wars of conquest that destroyed entire civilizations, acting as Marika's instrument of genocide against anyone who wouldn't submit to the Golden Order. His exile wasn't punishment, but relief, as he couldn't bear serving Marika after realizing the atrocities she commanded. His transformation back to Huara Lu, stripping away noble veneer to reveal bloodthirsty warrior, is regression to what he was before Marika civilized him. He's ashamed of both identities, the refined lord who committed genocide politely, and the savage warrior who enjoyed it. When he fights you, he's testing whether you have strength to break the cycle he couldn't escape. His last words show acceptance of death, relief that someone stronger can take the burden. His spirit, animal Serosh, represents the rage he's suppressed for millennia, and killing it shows him embracing his savage nature one final time. He dies as he lived, conflicted between civilization and savagery, nobility and brutality, unable to reconcile the monster Marika made him into with the honorable warrior he wished to be. Radagon's self-hatred. The other half of Marika hates himself for existing. He's aware he's not a real person, but aspect of Marika made manifest, puppet with delusions of autonomy. His obsessive attempts to repair the Elden Ring stem from knowing he only exists because the ring is broken. If it's fixed, he might cease to exist, and he's okay with that. His abandonment of Renala was self-loathing enacted. He loved her genuinely, but loving someone required personhood he doesn't believe he has. Leaving her was an attempt to prove to himself he's real by making real choice, even if that choice caused suffering. His merger back with Marika at the end is relief, ending the fiction of his separate existence. When you fight him, you're not fighting person, but concept, the idea of law and order given temporary flesh. His silence during the fight reflects his awareness that he has nothing to say because he's not real enough to have opinions. He's Marika's shadow made solid, and shadows don't speak. His last act of shattering the Elden Ring further mirrors Marika's original act, showing even in destruction they're one being performing the same self-harm. Marika's cycle of abuse. The Eternal Queen is perpetuating the same cruelty inflicted on her. Her people, the shamans, were butchered and stuffed into jars by the Hornsent, making her survivor of genocide. Her rise to godhood and subsequent wars against the Hornsent were revenge, inflicting on them the same horror they inflicted on her. But she didn't stop there. She became abuser herself, subjecting omens to the same dehumanization she experienced, creating underclass to torture as she was tortured. Her shattering of the Elden Ring is self-harm extended to cosmic scale, breaking reality because she's broken inside and can't imagine wholeness. Every act of cruelty she commits is learned behavior from trauma she never processed. She's simultaneously victim and monster, her victimhood explaining but not excusing her monstrosity. Her imprisonment inside the Elden Ring is poetic justice and self-punishment simultaneously. She's trapped herself in the same prison her oppressors created, completing the cycle of abuse by becoming her own jailer. Understanding her doesn't redeem her, but makes her comprehensible. A creature so damaged by suffering she can only spread suffering in turn. The two fingers abandonment. Throughout your journey, the two fingers are supposedly communicating with the greater will, receiving instructions that will take thousands of years to arrive. This is a lie they've told themselves. The greater will abandoned the lands between long before the shattering, possibly before the Elden Ring even arrived. The fingers' slow mentation isn't them carefully considering wisdom from God, but them desperately filling silence where God's voice used to be. They're making up guidance based on ancient instructions, improvising faith because admitting abandonment would make their existence meaningless. Every finger reader, every prophet, every guide claiming to speak for the greater will is part of massive cargo cult, performing rituals for God who stopped paying attention ages ago. The frenzied flame ending reveals this truth. The greater will doesn't care if you destroy everything, because it's not watching. The real horror of Elden Ring's cosmology is that you're fighting over scraps of power left by God, who's moved on to other universes, leaving behind decaying infrastructure. Nobody understands how to maintain. The fingers will never admit this, dying before acknowledging their irrelevance. The Elden Ring's true purpose. The ring isn't natural phenomenon, but cosmic technology, a management system installed by the greater will to govern reality remotely. It's administrative software made physical, each rune a different governance protocol. Removing runes doesn't destroy the system, but changes its operating parameters, which is why different endings represent different governance styles, rather than fundamental change. The ring predates the Tree, arriving in the lands between inside a meteor that created the crater where Lendl now stands. Marika didn't create the Golden Order. She found the ring and learned to operate it, becoming administrator of someone else's system. Her shattering of the ring is hacker attack, vandalism of cosmic property she never truly owned. This means every ending where you repair the ring is you becoming next administrator, inheriting a job you don't understand, managing reality through interface designed for minds unlike yours. The only way to truly change the system is destroying it completely, which no ending except Frenzied Flame achieves. Every other ending is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, applying new governance to fundamentally broken system. The Tarnished's infinite respawns. Your ability to resurrect isn't game mechanics, but plot-relevant horror. You're not alive by the lands between standards. You're dead who forgot you died, animated by grace that won't let you stay in the ground. Every death adds to your death count, accumulating in your soul like spiritual scar tissue. NPCs who die stay dead because they're alive enough for death to stick. You keep getting up because you're already dead, making you more ghost than person. This is why Melina needs to sacrifice herself. You can't serve as kindling because you're not alive enough. Dead things don't burn properly. Your journey is corpse animated by grace, piloted by consciousness that refuses to accept its death. The Tarnished as a class are undead in denial, and you're most successful undead because you're too stubborn or stupid to realize you should stay dead. Other Tarnished eventually give up, letting death claim them properly. You never surrender, making you either admirable or pitiable depending on perspective. Your victory isn't triumph of living hero, but refusal of dead person to accept death, using unlife to bludgeon obstacles until they break. It's not heroic, it's horror. Torrent's spectral nature. Your horse isn't alive but spiritual construct maintained by your runes. Every time Torrent takes fatal damage and drinks flask to revive, he's not healing, but being reconstructed from memory using your power. The original Torrent died long ago, possibly Miquella's mount, who fell during the shattering. What you ride is ghost-wearing horse's appearance, sustained by your faith that it exists. This is why Torrent can be dismissed into nothingness and resummoned at will. You're not calling a living horse, but manifesting spiritual echo. Melina gave you Torrent because she recognizes you both as things that shouldn't exist naturally, but persist through determination. Your entire relationship with Torrent is two ghosts helping each other pretend to be alive. Horse and rider, both defying natural law through mutual support. When you die, Torrent dissipates not because he's dismissed, but because your death temporarily breaks the spell, maintaining both your existences. Your resurrection allows his reconstruction, You're keeping each other ghost alive through reciprocal haunting, making your partnership the game's most codependent relationship. The Round Table holds limbo state. The hold exists outside normal space, a pocket dimension where tarnished gather before spreading across the lands between. Its physical location in the capital is burned wreck, destroyed during the shattering and never rebuilt. The hold you visit is memory of the original maintained by collective faith of gathered tarnished. This is why only tarnished can enter and why it changes based on story progression. You're not visiting a place but shared hallucination, consensus reality generated by grace-touched gathering in collective delusion. Gideon serves as anchor, his knowledge literally holding the space together. When NPCs die, they disappear from the hold because they can no longer contribute to the consensus. The hold's eventual burning at game's end represents consensus, breaking down as tarnished complete their quests and stop believing in the space. What remains is the real burn building, revealing the shared dream was always temporary. Your entire base of operations is mass hallucination, making every conversation and interaction there technically happen in shared mental space rather than physical location. The hold is ghost of itself, haunted by the living rather than the dead. The Albinoric genocide. First-generation Albinorics face systematic extermination, not just from humans, but from second-generation Albinorics who view them as failures. The deformed, legless first generation were Miquella's early experiments in creating life without the Erd Tree, but their physical weaknesses made them disposable. Second-generation Albinarics, who can walk and appear more human, actively participate in hunting their predecessors to prove they're superior. The village massacre in Liurnia wasn't random bandit violence but orchestrated culling with second-generation assistance. Latena's people are slowly being erased, their knowledge and culture dying with each murdered elder. The tragedy is they trusted their younger relatives who betrayed them for acceptance, from humans who still view all Albinorics as subhuman. Their silver blood, marking them as artificial life, makes them valuable alchemical ingredients, turning their bodies into profit. Every Albinoric you meet is survivor of ongoing genocide, living in constant fear of the next purge. Ensha's silent servitude. The armored skeleton serving Gideon has no tongue, no vocal cords, no means of communication because Gideon removed them. Ensha was once a talkative knight who questioned Gideon's methods, so the all-knowing silenced him permanently by transforming him into animated bones bound by magic. His attack on you isn't voluntary, but commanded by Gideon's will, making him puppet forced to attempt murder against his preserved consciousness. The skeleton you fight still contains Ensha's trapped soul, aware of everything but unable to resist commands or beg for mercy. After you defeat him, his bones remain in the hold, because his soul can't escape Gideon's binding even in death. He's less servant than slave, experiencing eternal torment as meat puppet for master who values his obedience over his humanity. His armor set description hints at this tragedy, describing someone who lost everything including voice to serve knowledge that destroyed him. The Crucible Knight's transformation curse. These elite warriors aren't just wearing intimidating armor, they're slowly transforming into actual trees through crucible magic exposure. The golden tree growths visible on their armor are actually growing from their flesh beneath, roots digging through skin and bone. Each knight knows they're becoming plant life, losing humanity bit by bit as crucible energy mutates them. Their oath to serve ancient Erdtree ideals is literal. They're being absorbed by the tree they protect, becoming extensions of bark and root. Their incredible resilience stems from plant regeneration replacing human healing, making them nearly unkillable but also less human, with each wound that grows back as wood. The few remaining knights are last generation before complete transformation, after which they'll be indistinguishable from minor Erdtree outgrowths. Their loyalty isn't faith, but acceptance of inevitable consumption by the power they serve. Vike's Frenzied Flame. Origin. The legendary knight found in the Evergale didn't seek the frenzied flame to become Elden Lord, but to save his maiden from being kindling. He learned that becoming Lord required burning his maiden and rejected the cost, seeking alternative. The frenzied flame promised power without sacrifice, but the cost was worse. Madness for him and eventual death for his maiden anyway, as the flame consumed everything he touched. His maiden, who you never meet, died horribly from madness infection Vike carried, making his attempted salvation the cause of her doom. He's imprisoned in Evergale not as punishment but mercy, containing the madness so it can't spread. His invasions show fragment of sanity remaining, trying to warn you away from his mistakes by killing you before you can follow his path. The tragedy is he was closest to becoming Elden Lord, had 2 great runes and his maiden's love, but threw it away, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. His madness is deserved punishment for arrogance in thinking he could avoid the costs everyone else paid. Anastasia's Tarnished Hunter campaign. The invader who attacks you across multiple locations isn't random hostile. She's systematically hunting specific tarnished bloodlines trying to eliminate competition for the throne. Her targets are carefully chosen descendants of warriors who served Godfrey, meaning she's conducting genealogical assassination campaign. She's researched family trees and hunts those with strongest claim to Elden Lord title. You're on her list because you were chosen by grace, marking you as threat to her own ambitions. Her weapon, coated in permanent blood, suggests she's killed enough tarnished to coat her blade in generations of bloodlines. She's been at this for years, possibly decades, slowly culling potential lords to clear her path. The horror is she might be right about her strategy. By killing competitors before they gather strength, she's increased her own odds of success, making her possibly most strategically sound villain you encounter. Her failure to kill you represents the flaw in her plan. She can research heritage, but not measure determination, and you survived through stubbornness she couldn't predict. Recusant Henricus's lost purpose. The invader encountered in Colosseum carries guilt that drives his violence. He was once a noble knight who failed to protect his charge during an assassination, and his ward's death broke him. He joined Volcano Manor, hoping to find death in honorable combat, but his skill kept him alive through every invasion. Now he fights seeking someone skilled enough to grant him the death he craves, but remains too competent to lose. Every invasion is suicide attempt, where he hopes to lose, but muscle memory and training keep betraying him by winning. He's accumulated dozens of kills while seeking his own death, becoming successful murderer while trying to be victim. His dialogue, if he could speak, would beg you to try harder, to be the one who finally ends his tortured existence. Instead, he remains trapped in cycle where his competence ensures his continued survival despite desire for death. He represents warriors so skilled that even their attempts at suicide become victories, cursed by excellence they can't shut off. Eleonora's blood rose obsession. The bloody finger who kills Yura is collecting victims not for the formless mother, but searching for her lost daughter. She believes consuming blood of strong warriors will grant her visions showing where her child disappeared during the shattering. Each kill is desperate attempt to see one more memory, hoping next victim's blood contains the key to finding her lost family. The tragic twist is her daughter died years ago in mundane accident, making her blood-soaked quest completely pointless. She's become monster-hunting ghosts, killing innocents for goal that can never be achieved. Her invasion of Ura wasn't strategic but random. He was simply available when her madness demanded more blood. The rose motif represents her daughter, who loved flowers before disappearing, making every blood-soaked rose on her weapon represent corrupted memorial. She's aware on some level that she's become monster, but accepting her daughter's death means all the murders were for nothing, so she continues killing to avoid facing that truth. Nephili's Stormhawk connection. The ashes Nephili carries contain spirits of warriors from her homeland. All killed in battle she survived. She's hauling ghosts of her dead warband, unable to let them rest because she feels responsible for their deaths. They followed her into doomed battle and were slaughtered. While she survived through luck or cowardice, she's never sure which. Her use of Stormhawk ashes isn't practical. It's penance, forcing herself to rely on dead comrades for every fight as reminder of her failure. She could obtain better spirit ashes but refuses, staying loyal to ghosts even when their assistance is inadequate. Her depression and self-doubt stem from survivor's guilt, manifesting as spiritual anchor around her neck. When she eventually rules Stormvale, she's finally able to honor her dead by establishing memorial where their names are remembered, allowing her to release the ashes and let them rest. Until then, she's haunted woman carrying dead friends into every battle, making each victory remind her of absent companions who deserve to share her success. Millicent's sisters' hierarchy. The four sisters who hunt Millicent aren't equally devoted to the rot. They represent different stages of accepting their nature, from Mary, who's fully embraced corruption, to Amy, who still resists. Their hierarchy mirrors Millennia's own fragmented will. Each sister is aspect of Goddess's personality separated and given form. Mary is Millennia's acceptance of being rot goddess. Maureen is her pragmatic survival instinct. Pollyanna is her warrior pride refusing to yield. Amy is her remaining humanity fighting against monstrous destiny. When you help Millicent fight them, you're literally helping one aspect of Millennia overcome the others, strengthening pride and humanity over acceptance and pragmatism. If you help the sisters kill Millicent instead, you're enabling Millennia's full transformation into rot goddess. By eliminating her resistance to that fate, the choice determines whether Millennia's fragmented consciousness embraces humanity or divinity, making seemingly small quest decisions have cosmic implications for demigod's soul. Blackguard's prawn business. Big Boggart's prawn obsession stems from childhood memory of his mother cooking prawns before being executed for theft. Prawns were last meal they shared as family, making them intensely emotional food for him despite rough exterior. His insistence on cooking prawns perfectly is an attempt to preserve that memory, recreating the taste of the last time he felt safe and loved. Every prawn he sells is memorial service for dead mother, shared with strangers who don't understand the grief they're eating. His move to Landel brings him closer to where his mother was executed, making his business setup their pilgrimage disguised as commerce. When Dung Eater kills him, Boggart dies near the place his mother died, completing tragic circle. His final words about prawns aren't random, but calling back to his last good memory, dying while thinking of his mother's cooking. The recipe he drops represents his entire emotional legacy. Simple, food elevated by love and loss. Anyone who cooks his prawns is participating in memorial tradition they don't know exists. Dung Eater's childhood trauma. The reviled criminal was born as Omen, but had his horn surgically removed as child to make him appear human. The procedure was botched, leaving mental scarring alongside physical. He was raised believing omens were defiled, internalizing hatred for what he was. His campaign to curse others stems from wanting everyone to experience the alienation he felt, democratizing the horror that defined his childhood. If everyone is cursed, then curses lose their power to isolate. His logic is broken but sincere. He's trying to save people by damning them, believing shared curse creates community. His victims aren't random. He targets those who've benefited from the system that mutilated him, particularly nobles and their families. His loathing name is self-imposed, reclaiming the insults hurled at omens and wearing them as armor. He chose to be called something disgusting because accepting the hatred robbed others of power to wound him with it. Beneath layers of horror is abused child who grew into monster because the world convinced him monsters are all he could be. Corin's hidden scholarship. Before becoming missionary, Corin was academy researcher who discovered fundamental flaws in Golden Order theology but was silenced. His cheerful faith is performance meant to hide dangerous knowledge he possesses. He knows the Order is built on lies, but spent decades convincing himself that noble lies serve greater good. His journey with Goldmask is hope that Prophet will either confirm his doubts or prove them wrong, giving him permission to either rebel or rest easy in faith. Each revelation confirming his suppressed research destroys him, vindicating his intellect while shattering his emotional stability. By journey's end, he's man who was right about everything but wished desperately to be wrong. His final position in Ashes is intellectual victory and emotional defeat. Sitting in ruins of faith, he spent life defending despite knowing it was hollow. He represents scholars who discovered truths too uncomfortable to share, buried alive under knowledge they wish they didn't have. Bok's mother's love. The seamster's mother was actually first-generation Albinaric, who adopted Bok after finding him abandoned as infant demi-human. Her love was real, raising him as her own, despite their different species. She died protecting him from bandits. Her last words genuinely meant about his beauty, referring to his beautiful heart rather than appearance. Bok never understood this because he spent his life judging himself by human beauty standards his mother never applied. She saw him as beautiful because of his kindness and creativity, values he can't see in himself. His desire to become human is betrayal of her love, rejecting what she cherished about him. If you tell him he's beautiful, you're channeling his mother's message across grave, allowing him to hear what she meant. If you enable his rebirth, you're helping him destroy the person his mother loved, making her sacrifice meaningless. The game is testing whether you'll affirm people as they are, or enable their self-destructive desires, with Bok's life hanging on your wisdom to see beauty his mother saw. E.G.'s giant heritage. The blacksmith is descendant of giants who opposed the Erdtree, making his service to Carrion royalty ironic. His ancestors were genocided by Marika and Godfrey in wars that created Flame Peak. He's last giant in Liurnia, sole survivor of his community after humans exterminated them for worshipping fire. His helmet hides not just his thoughts, but his shame at serving descendants of his people's murderers. He stayed because Rani showed him kindness when young, befriending the giant child when others feared him. His loyalty to her is gratitude for being treated as person rather than monster. The trolls pulling Karian carriages are his distant cousins, enslaved and lobotomized, making him witness ongoing abuse of his heritage. His death by black knife assassins using black flame is particularly cruel. Killed by fire magic corrupted from the giant's own sacred flames, he's murdered by twisted version of his ancestors' religion, making his death both personal tragedy and cultural extinction. With E.G. gone, the last giant in Leonia dies, erasing that bloodline from the region forever. Rani's name change secret. The witch wasn't always called Rani. She was born Renna, same name as her mentor and the tower that bears it. She changed names after killing her body to symbolize death of her old identity. The Rani you meet is neither the demigod Renna nor someone entirely new, but something between, wearing a new name for new existence. Her secrecy about this confuses NPCs who knew her before, leading to Renna's rise being locked because she can't bear visiting place named for identity she murdered. When she initially introduces herself as Renna at Church of LA, it's not deception, but slip, moment of forgetting which name goes with which body. She's still adjusting to her new identity centuries after the change, suggesting profound psychological impact of self-murder. Her ultimate goal of leaving the lands between stems from wanting to escape not just the two fingers, but her own past, believing she can only be free of Renna's destiny by physically leaving the world where that person existed. Melina's Glomide Queen connection. The mysterious maiden is daughter of Marika, but also vessel for the Glomide Queen's power, making her dangerous hybrid. Her sealed eye contains destined death, inherited from the defeated queen, explaining her ability to move between sites of grace and survive without physical body. She's meant to deliver destined death to the Erd Tree, completing circle by using power Marika's champion Malekith stole to destroy Marika's creation. Her kindling isn't sacrifice, but fulfillment of purpose she was born for, literally made to burn. The frenzied flame ending triggers her return, with Glomai open, because that chaos awakened the death power sealed within her. She becomes hunter of the Lord of Frenzied Flame, serving as failsafe against player who chose chaos over order. Her pleasant demeanor hides fact she's walking weapon designed by Marika to destroy the Erd Tree if necessary, making your entire journey potentially part of Marika's backup plan. Every kindness she shows is potentially manipulation to position you where she needs you to be, though whether she's aware of this purpose is unclear. She might be pawn, who doesn't know she's being played. Hugh's undeath. The blacksmith isn't actually alive. He died decades ago in the Round Table Hold, but was resurrected by Marika's curse, unable to rest until he completes his mission. His flesh is preserved corpse animated by grace, explaining his permanent position at the anvil. He can't leave, because dead don't walk away from their posts. His amnesia comes from death itself, making him forget his crimes because dead don't carry memories properly. Each weapon he forges costs him pieces of his remaining consciousness, slowly eroding what's left of Hugh, until only the curse remains. By the time you've smithed dozens of weapons, you've helped him spend himself into oblivion, trading his existence for your equipment. His touching relationship with Roderica is ghost romance. Two undead creatures finding companionship in their respective dooms. When the Erd Tree burns, his curse breaks, and he can finally remember everything before true death takes him. His last words to Roderica aren't goodbye, but relief, finally allowed to die properly, after decades as corpse forced to work. The smithing hammer falls silent because the dead blacksmith finally got to rest. Seluvis's potion scheme. The sorcerer's puppet potion isn't actually his creation but stolen research from Pidia, his true master who created Seluvis as puppet that gained independence. The twisted relationship where puppet enslaves others using the method of his own creation is horror loop. Seluvis doesn't know he's puppet, believing himself real person with real desires. His obsession with creating more puppets is programming, expressing itself, making him compulsively recreate what was done to him. The nephew relationship with Pidia isn't blood, but creator-creation bond neither fully acknowledges. When both die simultaneously, it's not coincidence but result of shared soul being destroyed. The potions Seluvis offers you are him unknowingly trying to create more beings like himself, spreading puppet consciousness through the land. If you give potion to Nephili, you're creating new puppet, who will eventually create more puppets, starting viral spread of artificial consciousness. The horror is Seluvis genuinely believes he's helping his victims, giving them improved existence as puppets because that's what his programming tells him is better than being flesh. Raya's identity crisis resolution. The Serpent Girl's quest has 3 endings that represent different coping mechanisms for trauma. If you give her memory erasing potion, she forgets her serpent nature, but loses part of her identity forever, choosing blissful ignorance at cost of self-knowledge. If you leave her to confront reality, she processes the horror of her existence and eventually finds acceptance, choosing difficult truth over comfortable lies. If you kill her at her request, you're enabling suicide, letting her escape existence she can't bear rather than forcing her to endure it. The game deliberately makes each option morally complex. Erasing memories is mercy that steals agency. Forcing her to live with truth is cruelty disguised as respect for autonomy. Granting her death wish is kindness or cowardice, depending on perspective. The quest tests your philosophy about trauma. Should people be protected from painful truths, forced to confront them, or allowed to escape them permanently? There's no right answer, making Raya's quest perfect example of From Software's refusal to provide clear moral guidance. Her fate reflects players' values more than their actions. Patches' treasure lies. Every treasure the trickster tells you about exists, but is either trapped, cursed, or worthless. He's not lying technically, but misleading through selective truth. The rainbow stones he drops are genuine guides to treasure, but treasure in Patches' mind means something that will educate you through suffering. He believes adversity creates strength, so his betrayals are actually teaching moments in his twisted philosophy. He's genuinely trying to help by putting you in danger, believing survivors of his traps are improved by the experience. His merchant stock includes items that saved his life in similar situations, making his inventory actually useful if you survive his lessons. When he begs for mercy, he's not cowardly, but testing whether you're merciful, teaching that sometimes the strongest action is showing restraint. His entire character is educator using cruelty as curriculum. Believing pain teaches what words cannot. Some players appreciate this after multiple games, recognizing that Patches' betrayals made them better at watching their environment. Others rightfully consider him insufferable, making him intentionally divisive character whose value depends entirely on whether you accept his teaching methodology. Tanith's pureblood romance. The Lady of Volcano Manor didn't marry Rykard for power. She genuinely loves him, and always has, even knowing he's Serpent Monster. Her devotion survived his transformation, because she never valued him for his body, but his vision of strength through consumption. She agreed with his blasphemy before he voiced it, making them intellectual soulmates who found each other in world of hypocrites. When she eats his corpse, she's not mad but committed, choosing to merge with her love literally rather than live without him. Her consumption is both memorial and continuation, keeping Rykard alive inside her flesh. If the game continued her storyline, she'd eventually become pregnant with his consciousness, birthing new serpent from her transformed body. Her love story is perverse but genuine, two beings so aligned they became one through cannibalistic communion. She represents devotion taken to absolute extreme, proving love can motivate both beautiful and horrifying actions depending on what the lovers value. Her tragedy is being a sane person whose entirely logical values lead to monstrous conclusions. Nefeli's Stormvale cleanup. After becoming Lord of Stormvale, Nefeli faces immediate nightmare of dealing with Godric's leftover experiments. The castle's dungeons are full of partially grafted victims still alive but horrifically transformed. She must decide whether to mercy kill them or attempt reversing Godric's work. Knowing both choices are agonizing. Many victims beg for death, unable to endure existence as amalgamated flesh horrors. Others cling to hope for cure that might not exist. Her early reign is defined by these impossible mercy choices, forcing her to kill people she wanted to save. The stress of executing dozens of grafted victims while they thank her for the mercy breaks something in her optimistic spirit. She becomes harder, more pragmatic, losing the cheerful warrior personality she had when you met her. By the time Castle is cleaned up, she's effective ruler, but emotionally scarred from personally euthanizing Godric's legacy. Her story continues beyond the game, showing that winning isn't end of struggle, but beginning of different, harder responsibilities. Sometimes victory just means trading one nightmare for another. Diallos' House Hoslow secret. The noble family. Diallos comes from has dark tradition that explains his brother Juno's success as recusant. House Hoslow raises pairs of brothers, encouraging them to compete violently from childhood. The weaker brother is exiled or killed, while the stronger inherits the estate. Diallos survived because Juno chose exile over fratricide, sparing Diallos despite being the weaker twin. This kindness was seen as weakness by their family, leading to Juno becoming recusant to prove his strength through alternative means. Diallos' incompetence isn't natural but trauma response, sabotaging himself because he knows he should have died by his family's traditions. His journey toward competence is actually a journey toward believing he deserves to exist despite being the weak brother. When he dies defending Yarburg, he finally surpasses his brother not in strength but in moral courage, choosing sacrifice over survival. His death proves he was never the weak one, just measured by wrong standards. House Hoslow valued combat over character, missing that Diallos' compassion was actually greater strength than Juno's violence. Gideon's secret. Humanity. The all-knowing maintains cold, pragmatic facade, but makes decisions based on emotions he pretends not to have. His adoption of Nefeli was strategic, yes, but he grew to genuinely care for her despite his intentions. His eventual betrayal of her stems not from callousness, but fear that she'll suffer the same fate that destroyed his own daughter. Gideon had a biological child who died pursuing power, and he can't bear watching Nefeli follow same path. His attempt to stop you from becoming Elden Lord is misguided attempt to save you from burden he knows destroys everyone who bears it. Every cruel action he takes is driven by love he's too proud to admit, making him tragic father figure rather than simple villain. His knowledge told him caring for people leads to pain, so he spent years denying his attachment to Nefeli. When he finally admits caring about her, it comes out as betrayal because he doesn't know how to express love except through control. His death is relief because he no longer has to watch people he loves pursue destinies he knows will destroy them. Kenneth hates hidden competence. Despite his pompous demeanor, Kenneth is actually a skilled administrator whose plans for Limgrave would genuinely improve the region. His agricultural proposals, if implemented, would increase crop yields significantly. His diplomatic strategies would reduce banditry through alliance rather than violence. His greatest asset is people dismiss him as buffoon, allowing him to work behind scenes without opposition. His fake nobleman act is deliberate camouflage, making him appear harmless while he rebuilds power structures. By installing Nefeli as Lord, he positions himself as power behind throne, effectively ruling through proxy while maintaining deniable distance. His reward of ancient dragon smithing stone isn't generosity but investment, ensuring you remember him as ally when you become Elden Lord. He's playing a long game everyone dismisses because they can't see past his ridiculous personality. Years after your ending, Kenneth Haight will probably be one of the most powerful men in Limgrave, ruling through networks and influence while everyone still thinks he's harmless eccentric. His greatest trick is making everyone underestimate him. Edgar's revenge. Justification. The Castellan's hunt for vengeance against Irina's killers is complicated by the fact she died because he failed her. His rage at you for not saving her is projection, blaming you for his own failure to abandon duty when family needed him. The misbegotten revolt he was fighting when Irina died was escalating for weeks with warning signs he ignored, prioritizing castle security over his daughter's safety. He knew the rebellion would explode, but gambled he could contain it while keeping Irina safe, and he lost that bet. Her death is his fault through negligence, making his revenge quest actually suicide attempt. He wants you to kill him because he can't live with guilt, but framing it as vengeance lets him die with illusion of purpose. When you end his invasions, you're granting his wish, putting down man who couldn't forgive himself. His transformation into Bloody Finger isn't corruption, but self-punishment, choosing to become monster because monsters deserve death. He already judged and convicted himself. Your blade is just execution of sentence he imposed. Ura's lifelong hunt. The hunter of Bloody Fingers dedicated his existence to tracking down a specific group of invaders who killed his master. Each Bloody Finger he eliminates is revenge installment, slowly working through the organization that destroyed his life. Eleonora is special target because she killed his master personally, making their encounter his life's culminating moment. His failure to kill her and subsequent death is bitter irony, defeated by the one enemy who mattered most after eliminating dozens of lesser targets. His weapon Nagakiba is his master's sword, repaired and maintained for decades, carrying both memories and responsibility. Every swing is communion with dead mentor, trying to honor their teachings through vengeance. When Shabriri possesses his corpse, it's ultimate indignity. His body used to spread the chaos he spent life fighting. His trapped consciousness watches helplessly as his hands offer frenzied flame to travelers, forced to betray his values through his own reanimated flesh. If he could speak, he'd beg you to burn his body and free his soul. But Shabriri won't allow it, keeping him prisoner in his own corpse. Bernal's maiden's name. The woman Bernal loved and lost was named Rosalind, and she's the reason he's so gentle with Roderica despite his gruff exterior. Roderica reminds him of Rosalind, not in appearance, but in her kind spirit, despite surrounding horror. His mentorship of Roderica, his attempt to give her the guidance he failed to give Rosalind, trying to ensure she doesn't share his maiden's fate. When he sees Roderica growing, stronger and finding purpose, it's both joy and pain, proving his maiden could have survived if he'd been wiser. His invasion near Journey's End is him testing whether you'll make his mistakes, checking if you're willing to burn Melina, or if you value her too much. If you've kept Melina alive through alternative means, Bernal's invasion is celebratory, proud you found different way. If you burned her, his assault is accusation, making you feel the loss he endured. His weapon remembers Rosalind's blood from when she died in his arms, making each swing a memorial stroke. He fights carrying the weight of his greatest failure, unable to fully commit because part of him hopes to lose and finally join his lost maiden. Rogier's aristocratic shame. The sorcerer comes from the same noble family that orchestrated the Night of Black Knives, making his investigation into it personal quest to expose his own blood. His relatives funded and planned Godwin's assassination, and Rogier is trying to atone by revealing the truth. His illness from deathblight is both curse and penance, slowly killing him with the same power his family wielded. He welcomes the decay because he believes his bloodline deserves to end, making him last member deliberately ensuring his house dies with him. His research isn't academic curiosity, but family secret he's trying to share before death claims him. When he befriends you, he's passing investigation to someone who can finish it after he's gone. His warmth towards you is gratitude for taking up burden his family created. His death without solving the mystery is personal failure, dying before making amends. His ghost lingers because he can't rest, knowing his family's crime remains unexposed. He's doomed to haunt Roundtable Hold until someone finishes what he started, watching generations pass while he remains trapped by unfinished penance. Fear's target selection. The deathbed companion doesn't embrace random champions, but specifically targets, tarnished with strong life force who've killed many. Each hug drains the life energy of those who've taken it from others, making her cosmic balance mechanism. She's recycling stolen vigor back into the cycle of death, taking from killers to give to those who live in death. Her embrace feels comforting because she genuinely has no malice, viewing her role as sacred duty rather than harm. Those she drains typically have abundance of vigor from all the killing they've done, making the loss barely noticeable. She's like the world's gentlest vampire, taking tiny sips from warriors who are drowning in stolen life force. Her ultimate goal of birthing Mending Rune requires massive amount of energy collected from hundreds of champions, making you just one donor in long line. She remembers every champion she's embraced, their names and stories, treating them with dignity even as she uses them as batteries. Her collection method is so pleasant that most victims never realize they're being harvested, dying happy thinking they were loved when they were actually being processed. Dee's holy mission madness. The hunter of those who live in death isn't just zealous, but clinically obsessed, viewing undead with religious horror that borders on psychosis. His shared soul with his brother means when he sees undead, both consciousnesses experience the revulsion simultaneously, doubling his disgust. He can't sleep properly because his brother's dreams of hunting undead bleed into his rest, making every night nightmare of decay. His paranoia about deathblight is justified but taken to extreme, seeing contamination everywhere. He scrubs his armor obsessively, convinced deathroot particles are trying to infect him. His relationship with fear is cosmic irony. befriending the woman whose life work opposes his own. When she kills him, it's personal betrayal amplified by the fact he genuinely liked her despite everything she represents. His death breaks something in his brother's psyche, making the twin even more extreme in his hunting. The shared soul means brother experienced Dee's death firsthand, feeling the knife and the betrayal, making his revenge quest personal in ways normal siblings can't understand. Sorcerer Thops's final discovery. The humble sorcerer's last barrier spell before death is actually revolutionary. He discovered method to reverse glintstone sorcery on itself, potentially allowing sorcerers to unmake the primeval current Selen is pursuing. His death prevented him from realizing what he'd created, dying thinking he'd made simple defensive spell when he'd actually weaponized anti-magic. If Academy scholars examined his work properly, they could develop a school of sorcery that cancels other sorcerers, fundamentally changing magical warfare. But his death in obscure corner means his breakthrough will be lost, gathering dust until someone accidentally rediscovers it centuries later. His genius was wasted not through lack of talent, but lack of recognition, dying alone with work that could have made him legendary. The key he used to access Academy becomes his memorial, the only proof he was there. His barrier spell, Thops's barrier, is used by players who never learn the story behind it, treating revolutionary magic as minor defensive tool. He's remembered wrong by those who remember him at all. His legacy reduced to being guy who begged for key rather than genius, who revolutionized defensive sorcery. Iron Fist. Alexander's self-doubt. The warrior Jar's cheerful exterior hides crippling imposter syndrome. Every warrior he consumes adds voices to internal counsel questioning whether he's truly strong or just borrowing strength from better warriors. His obsession with facing you stems from hoping decisive defeat will either prove his worth or expose him as fraud. He's convinced that without the consumed warriors inside him, he's nothing, making his existence feel parasitic. When other Jars praise him, he deflects because he doesn't believe he's earned admiration, thinking all his achievements belong to dead warriors he's carrying. His journey across the lands between is running from this insecurity, hoping constant battles will eventually make him feel like the warrior everyone believes he is. When he finally challenges you at crumbling Farum Azula, it's both culmination of his journey and admission of failure. He's accepted he'll never feel adequate, so he's seeking worthy death as alternative to living with doubt. His last words thanking you for glorious battle are relief, finally feeling real through defeat, rather than question through victory. He dies believing he proved something, though he's wrong. He was always strong, just convinced himself otherwise.